is going on, everybody? My name is Jesse, aka your very own one and only Chi-Town Smart, and this is a video that a lot of you have been waiting for. This video is long overdue. I know you guys have seen the thumbnail. I know you've seen the title. I do a lot of shows as of late, and a lot of people have questions. They ask, they wonder, why do you hate on CM Punk so much? Why do you hate on Punk? You're just a hater. You're just a hater. I'm going to get into all of that today. This video is going to be definitive. It's going to be detailed. It's going to give the complete reasoning and the explanation behind why I personally have beef with one CM Punk. So stick around for this ride, man. It's going to be a fun one. Do me a favor before we do, though. Just real quick. If you're new here, thank you. Do me a favor. Hit the thumbs up button. Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. We are on a mission. We're on a journey to boost those subscribers. And the support has been overwhelming. You guys have been fantastic. Let's please keep that up. I understand a lot of you are subscribed, and I want to thank you. I don't want to pass you guys over, so hit the thumbs up button for me, if you will, please. Make sure you follow me on social media, all of that good stuff right there. Also, I have some new content coming up on Patreon very soon, in the next day or two, and let's get into this, man. So, this video is long overdue. I just assume that everyone knows my story and my history with this guy, and I just take it for granted. Sometimes I don't realize that there are new viewers here that may not know the whole backstory, and all they see is just he hates this guy for no reason. Trigger warning, absolute trigger warning, because I know there are a lot of diehard CM Punk fans, because I was one of them, and I continue to hear from all of them. So bear with me, stick with me throughout the video. I have quite a few things to address that may lead to a little bit of context as to why I don't like Phil. Now, I'm not making this video to try to convince others to not like Phil. I would not do that. If you are enjoying your pro wrestling and your pro wrestling involves CM Punk, great. That is great. I am doing this because I get a lot of people asking me about the backstory as to why exactly that I have a problem with Phil, and they just assume, well, it must be this. That's the reason why. So you're just a that, when you don't know the whole story. So that's what we're going to do here this evening. We're going to get into the whole story. So to begin telling the story of why I hate CM Punk, we're going to go back. We're going to go back a little bit to a little place known as the LWF, the Lunatic Wrestling Federation. Yes, that's a real thing. If you're unaware, sometimes indie promotions have strange names, and they're located all across the world. All across the world. Most of them have some really carny names. It happens, all right? And the LWF was located in my neighborhood. I'm talking, this place was located, it was based out of Mokina, a little town called Mokina, Illinois, less than 5 minutes from where I lived at the time. They did little, they did indie shows, just little indie shows around town, around the Illinois area. I mean, sometimes they traveled a little bit, but it was pro wrestling. It was local. It wasn't WWF at the time. It was local indie wrestling. CM Punk was a local hometown guy, all right? I liked watching the guy. I thought it was pretty cool. I thought that one day, maybe one day, he'll make it to the big top. Maybe one day he'll make it to WWF. But at the time, it was hard to imagine someone making it to WWF with the look that CM Punk had. It was a pipe dream, It was something that no one ever really expected. But with Punk and his rise of popularity and everything else, it just became undeniable. but you could tell that this guy had some anger issues. Talking about a pro wrestler with anger issues is like talking about a car with tires. Okay? I understand that. They all have them. This one went a little bit above and beyond. I'll show you. I have a clip right here that I want to show you guys. It's a clip from the LWF back in 1998. All right, this event happened in a town called Lockport, which is also not far from me. And I want you guys to take a look at this incident that happened in the LWF around Christmas in 1998.
Yeah, so it was LWF Christmas card 1990. To this day, I'm pretty sure we even talked about it back then, like at the time, but he never gave me an excuse for why this happened, or never gave me a reason. There was no reason. He was just pissed off about something. We do like a little face-off. He's pissed. We go in the back.
Did you guys just see that? This is not a part of the show. This is not a work. This is a young CM Punk who was clearly extremely unhappy about something that happened during the show.
And dude spits in my face, and then he says to me, "This is your first lesson in the business," and then he fucking walks off.
He spit in this man's face. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't have the full context as to what happened to make CM Punk that angry. All right, what I do know, how uncool it is to spit in another man's face, not to mention what we just saw was hurl a chair at someone who's sitting at a commentary table. The amount of anger that it must take to do those things while you're at work is just amazing to me. He was young. I believe this still was about 19 or 20 years old. I'm not going to hold someone to a mistake that they made when they were 19, 20 years old. I get it. People mature. People grow up. People learn from their mistakes. All right. This guy went on to have the career of a pro wrestler that only one would dream of. He outgrew that. He went on, became a better person, became a better human being. I continue to be a fan of Phil Brooks. But we're going to jump forward. We're going to jump forward to, because I know everyone is aware of his exit from WWE, his retirement, and his return. I was a fan of everything Phil during his run in WWE. I was a fan of Phil when he left WWE. I was a supporter. I did not appreciate how WWE treated Punk. I felt that they gave him a raw deal. I thought they screwed him over. I believed everything that Punk told me about WWE. I believed that everything Punk wanted me to believe via interviews, via the infamous Colt Cabana Art of Wrestling podcast. Probably the most famous podcast in the history of wrestling podcasts. I supported Punk. I believed in this journey. I believed everything he told me because, to me, he came off as a genuine fan of pro wrestling. He genuinely loved this business the same way that I did. And I felt like WWE was trying to big league the guy and stifle him and halt his momentum. CM Punk represented everything that I was looking for in pro wrestling. And WWE was more fixated on the big muscle-bound guys with no athleticism. I stuck with Punk. I believed everything he said. When the rumors started to swirl that CM Punk was about to make a return to pro wrestling, not just to pro wrestling, but he wasn't going back to WWE. No, he was going to make his big return in this new upstart company called AEW. They had been around for a little bit. They had quite a bit of momentum behind them. The workers were speaking highly of the work environment there, management there. And we know times have changed there, though, right? But in comes CM Punk into AEW. Great. CM Punk made his triumphant return as an episode of Rampage, the first dance at the United Center. I was right there, Punk shirt, ice cream bars, looking like a goddamn mark, just like everyone else there. I was not too far from the dude that was sitting there crying because Punk made his return. I wasn't about to go that far, but I felt his passion. I understood it. I got it. You know, everything was right in the world. Punk comes in, does his thing. Everything is going great. We get to CM Punk in a feud with Hangman Adam Page. Not long after signing with AEW, Punk posted this. All right? Punk posted, doesn't matter if your opinion of your coworker is positive or negative. Stand with them because they'll do the same thing to you and you'll wish someone helped. Trust me, you're expendable. It's fairly cryptic, but for context, it's believed that statement was about Sasha and Naomi walking out of WWE and how they stuck with each other and they decided to walk out because they had their beliefs. They were told something, they were lied to, and they were tired of it, and they left. All right? Good for them. I am all for the talent sticking up for themselves and doing what's right. That's fantastic because if the talent does not stick together, then the business will swallow them up whole. And I get that. I understand that. And it's important. So now Punk is in the feud with Hangman Adam Page. That was posted not long after he was hired. And in this feud with Hangman Adam Page, CM Punk is in the feud with Page in the ring. Hangman says, "You talk a big game about workers' rights, yeah? Well, you've shown the exact opposite since you've gotten here." That statement seems to be a huge point of contention. It seems to be a huge issue with Punk because the reason for that statement was about Colt Cabana. Okay? There were reports that Colt Cabana was slated to be fired along with a few others in AEW, probably to offset the contract that CM Punk got. Releases were not a common thing in AEW. But at that point, they started to become, hey, it's business, I guess, whatever. Well, there were reports that Colt Cabana was supposedly going to be on that list. What Hangman is referring to is that he believed the reason that Colt Cabana was not being re-signed with the company is because of CM Punk. If you're unaware, Colt Cabana and CM Punk, because of that most famous wrestling podcast ever, had a falling out in regards to the legal fees as it pertains to the lawsuit with Chris Amon, WWE, CM Punk, Colt Cabana. According to Colt Cabana, CM Punk said he was going to front the legal fees for it. I'm not sure. I think Punk disagreed with that or said it never happened or changed his mind about it. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, there was a huge disagreement. Those two guys who were the best of friends were no longer friends because of that podcast, because of everything that happened. It sucks to see, but yeah, those close friends had the biggest falling out over money. It sucks. I mean, that's the kind of thing I guess that happens. What Hangman was talking about is that Punk came in and was in TK's ear telling him not to re-sign Colt Cabana because he didn't like him because of all of this situation, okay? The thing is, the speculation began that Colt's deal was pulled, that he had a deal on the table, and it was pulled due to the arrival of CM Punk. And that is a huge point of contention right here. The CM Punk claims that that's not true. Hangman says that it is. But the fact that Hangman brought it up in the ring during the feud seems to have really upset CM Punk. Hangman wasn't the only one. There were a lot of others backstage who believed that Punk had something to do with Cabana not getting a new deal. Colt Cabana was extremely liked backstage in AEW. And with Punk coming in, the locker room was happy that Punk was coming in. The locker room was not happy that Colt Cabana was getting let go because Punk was coming in. Punk has always denied these claims. I want that to be front and center. Punk has always denied the claims that he had Cabana fired or no contract extension offered to him. And he expressed this to Hangman backstage. He made it clear that he did not do that, okay? Now, Tony Khan has stated that it was his decision and his decision alone to let Colt Cabana go. So the reports were true that he was slated to get released. So right there alone, Tony Khan has publicly said that it was his decision to let Colt Cabana go. But then, after all of this went down, Colt Cabana was re-signed, and he was signed to an ROH deal, which separates him from Punk and everything else that Punk was doing. Now, Tony Khan is saying he did it on his own. Maybe he did it preemptively to try to keep his new acquisition happy. I'm not sure. This side says this. The other side says that. Tony Khan says this. So we do know that Tony Khan was about to let him go, but then offered him extension due to the circumstances that was currently going on. So that's what we know. Now, Punk beats Hangman to win the title, all right? But then he injured himself the next night jumping into a crowd on Dynamite and fractured his foot. It happens, I guess. Punk had to go away, and what TK did was at the time, he loved his interim champions. All right, so Jon Moxley became the new interim champion at Forbidden Door, and the plan was to have a unification match at All Out in Chicago. But instead, the match took place 11 days prior to All Out on Dynamite. Why? Don't know. It was reported that this was Jon Moxley's idea. Moxley ended up squashing Punk at that match on Dynamite 11 days prior to All Out in an angle where Punk re-injured himself during the match. So he re-injured the ankle, and that's why Moxley won. Supposedly, the pitch from Moxley was so that it could be like a Rocky III scenario where the overconfident guy comes in and loses bad early on, but then wins the next match, in the real brawl. That was apparently what Moxley was shooting for. Punk said he's never seen Rocky III or any of the Rockies, and I think he got a lot of heel heat for that. It's kind of messed up. Think about that. He's in a squash match, basically, with Jon Moxley. Soon after that, he's back on television because that injury was a little bit of a work. He was probably still not fully recovered, but it was a little bit of a work. Punk went out in Dynamite and called out Hangman, who was not in the building, and he was not in a feud with at all. He literally went out there and went into business for himself completely with no chances of any kind of payoff because he was currently in a feud with Jon Moxley. Hangman reportedly apologized for the workers' rights comment that he said before, but Punk said that the apology needs to be as loud as the disrespect was. Punk was still angry. He said, you publicly disrespected me, and he wanted a public apology. Here's my take on this. No one knew. Hangman coming out and saying, you speak of workers' rights, but then you do this and do that. No one knew that was a shoot until Punk did what he did. No one knew that there was trouble in paradise till Punk came out confusing the live crowd, confusing fans at home as to why he's cutting a promo on Hangman and he's currently in a feud, Jon Moxley. Punk raised a lot of suspicions when he came out there shooting on Hangman. Punk went on to win the title at All Out 11 days after losing to Moxley on Dynamite, but not before tearing his tricep during it. Standing there victorious, a returning MJF came out to the ramp. That was supposed to be the next feud, but Punk knew he was hurt. Punk knew that he was going to be on the shelf for a while. Punk knew this was not his first stint, but his second stint in a very short amount of time that was going to put him on the shelf, leaving him subject to fragile labels and everything like that. After that match, after that segment with MJF at the top of the ramp and Punk in the ring, the crowd started chanting MJF's name in Chicago, and that did not make Phil happy at all. It appears that was probably the last straw, because enter the All Out media scrum. This media scrum has become a thing of legend. Punk began an absolutely unsolicited rant on Colt Cabana at the All Out media scrum. There was nothing going on publicly or feud-wise or storyline-wise or anything with Colt Cabana. No one asked Punk about Colt Cabana at this media scrum at all. Nothing. Punk, at the media scrum, sat down, started eating Mindy's cupcakes, and started on a rant about Colt Cabana, how he shares a bank account with his mom and all this other stuff. Man, he's just shooting on him. He also said that MJF needs to stop focusing on going to WWE because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Keep that in mind. Then all of his venom shifted to the Elite. He blames them for telling Meltzer that it was Punk that tried to get Cabana fired. He called Hangman dumb and he couldn't run a target and all this other shit that he said. He completely just shot on everything he didn't like about the company. Tony Khan sitting right next to him, watching this man burn his company to the ground, did nothing at all. Let it happen. He trusted Phil. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people aren't grasping. He trusted Phil to do what was right by the company. And Phil proceeded to do what was right for Phil. That brings us to the infamous Brawl Out moment. After CM Punk got up and left that podium and went to the back, he went to his locker room, and the exact details are vague. To put it lightly, there are plenty of reports out there, and some of these reports kind of come together and do shed a little bit of light on what may have went down in that locker room. The only thing we know for certain is that Larry was 100% at fault for that brawl. It was all that ugly dog's fault. But I digress. CM Punk, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Brandon Cutler, everyone involved in that brawl all got suspended. Ace Steel, all get suspended pending the investigation. They want to clear everything up. HR was there. Everybody saw what happened. There was enough to find out exactly what went wrong, why it happened, with Punk out there shooting on everyone and everything he could think of while he was eating those damn cupcakes. Everybody knew what was going on. It went to an investigation. TK, the guy did not handle that situation correctly. Tony Khan completely failed at being an owner. The guy, he's just not used to running a wrestling company. And there were a lot of egos on that roster to try to tame, keep in order, and he failed to do that. And this is the result of that. At the end of the day, TK is 100% to blame for everything that went wrong with CM Punk in AEW. I would hope that he's taking ownership of that. If not, he should be. But suspensions went out. Everybody served their time. The hope was they could get past this, they could squash this, and they could get back to making TV and earning and making everyone happy with pro wrestling. So TK gave Punk everything. He gave him a show, an AEW Collision. He gave him full creative control. He gave him his own roster. He gave Punk carte blanche. He gave Punk the ability to do anything he wanted with his new show. And in return, Punk was seen backstage at WWE Raw in Chicago before being kicked out by Vince McMahon. Some people thought it was a work. Some people thought he was just trying to get publicity for the new show that was getting ready to run on Saturday nights. Turns out he was literally there trying to get a job back. CM Punk went to run Collision during what can only be described as a soft brand split of the AEW roster. Some talent like Samoa Joe, FTR, House of Black, and Ricky Starks were on Collision, while the Elite and seemingly anyone associated with them were all on Dynamite. And that was just the dynamic. It was weird. It didn't feel right. I mean, the shows individually were fine. Individually, they're fine. They weren't their best, but they weren't as bad as they are right now either. It was doable. It was fine. All right. We get to London. All in. I was there. Had a great time. We all know what happened there. Apparently, right before that show, Jack Perry requested to do a spot with Real Glass that was supposed to lead to him having an indefinite amount of time off. CM Punk said no to the spot, said it was too dangerous. However that conversation went, we get to the match, and the car that Jack Perry came out in was used, and Real Glass was used in the spot, in this spot on the show. Apparently there was another spot that was supposed to be on Collision and CM Punk said no to, but this spot, I guess, got approved, and instead of just doing the spot, Jack Perry turned to the camera and said, "Real Glass, cry me a river." CM Punk, who was scheduled to go in the next match to kick off the show because that happened on the pre-show, got wind of this and got pissed. Jack Perry went to the back after his match. CM Punk literally attacked Jack Perry. There was a pull-apart brawl. Put him in a chokehold. Words were said. Things were said. Everybody got pissed. Supposedly, Tony Khan yelled at Punk saying, "You ruined everything for everyone. You know, go out there and do your job." And Samoa Joe talked Punk into doing it. So Punk and Joe went out there, had the match that they had, came back. Jack Perry was kicked out. CM Punk was kicked out, and the show went on. So CM Punk was fired for cause 1 week later. There's no speculation as to what happened backstage and why exactly it was he got fired, because TK has since released the footage, a move that triggered Punk fans. I mean, they were really offended that footage was shown for whatever reason. It served no purpose for AEW. It's not like they shed a negative cloud over Punk. I'm not sure why that footage needed to be shown, but they showed it. Now, Punk left. Punk went to WWE, made his big return at Survivor Series. We all know where it went from there. Now, remember, we're here talking about why I no longer like Phil Brooks. I wasn't fed up with Phil because he went to WWE. I was done with Phil for his actions during the All Out media scrum. Not because of what happened in the back. That didn't help anything. For what he did at the media scrum, that was it for me. That was the nail in the coffin for me and CM Punk. At that point, I hated him and those fucking cupcakes. I hated them both. Mindy's, Punk, Larry, especially Larry. They can all go. My support for Punk hit rock bottom after he left and decided to bash AEW every chance he got, though. That was just it for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I'll explain why that was an issue for me. All right. Punk, during that Colt Cabana podcast, the one that we talked about earlier, this is a quote from CM Punk in that podcast. Quote, "I didn't want to be like one of these crazy guys who was like, fuck WWE, because I'm not. I still have friends who fucking work there." So when he was talking to Colt Cabana, talking about his disdain for WWE, he said, "I didn't want to be like those guys going around bashing WWE because I still have guys who work there. I still have friends who work there." It's admirable. It's understandable. You have an issue with the company. It's not to the point where you had issues with everyone who worked there. You had issues with the people that you had issues with. Now, Transfer that to here. Punk did not keep that same energy when he left AEW. He left AEW kicking and screaming, still doing interviews about how terrible the company is and everything else. He still has friends that work there, by the way. All right. Punk's actions served no one but Punk. All right. If he feels the company did him wrong, hey man, I get it. I've been down that road. I understand it. You want out. Understandable. No one wants to work where they're unhappy. Hence the whole reason for his 10-year hiatus. But there was no reason that he could not leave the very same way that Cody Rhodes left. Cody Rhodes left with an issue. He was upset. He did not like where the direction of the company was going. He did not like things that were going on backstage. He left. He smiled. He finished out his deal. And you have never heard a single negative word come out of Cody Rhodes' mouth about AEW. Why? Well, he's got friends there. His brother still works there. Why burn down the company? Plus, it is in every wrestler's best interest to have a company like AEW there, even if you don't work there. Your negotiating leverage is diminished significantly if there is no AEW there. Your favorite wrestler in WWE is making more money than they were making before the existence of AEW because they don't want them going to AEW. They're not going to pay them more money just because they ask for it if they know that they have nowhere else to go. Same for AEW. They have to be competitive with their wages because you don't want them going back to WWE. It's the same exact thing. I'm not sure why. Well, I'm sure why. I don't know why Phil had to do everything he could to burn this company down to the ground on his way out. He just could have left like a man, did his thing, held up his responsibilities, and left and did his thing in WWE. I don't think all of the extracurricular stuff was necessary. I think he did it just to feed his own ego. I think everything that he's doing right now in WWE so on screen is good stuff, all right? It's great stuff on TV. He's doing great work on TV. I think he's on his best behavior right now because he knows he's burned his absolute last bridge. He has nowhere else to go. He has no other choice but to be on his best behavior because if this does not work out well, it's back to his couch in Chicago he goes. I think he could have left the company better than it was when he got there. Even though he had the falling out that he had with the Elite and everything else. Look, work relationships don't always work out. I get it. I understand that. I have been there. There is no reason to act the way he acted on his way out. I believe this guy when he left WWE. I supported him then. I supported him through all of the other crap that was going on with him. But for this one, it was just the straw for me. I can't take it anymore. I don't blindly follow anyone. I don't support someone, watch them do something they shouldn't have done, and then say, well, it was okay. Or make an excuse for it. Well, they did it because of this. Even if I still want to support them, I won't support the thing that they did that we're talking about. Yeah, I still support him, but he probably shouldn't have done this. I don't agree with that. I agree that was messed up, but I do still support him. That's better than, well, he didn't do it. That's better than, well, he should have did it. Or that's better than, well, he told them what to do. That's another thing. A lot of people say stuff like, well, he told Tony Khan what to do, and Tony Khan didn't do it, so Phil did it. Phil is not the owner. Phil does not run the company. Phil does not own the company. So Phil does not get to tell the owner of the company what to do and when to do it. Not to mention everything that happened at London. I truly believe that at that point, Punk didn't want to be there anymore. Hence, that's why he showed up at Raw trying to get a meeting with Triple H and Vince. He didn't want to be there anymore. So by the time London came, he was looking for a reason to get fired. It just happened to be Jack Perry. Jack Perry just suffered because he was the one that he was the fight that Phil chose to get himself fired. And it worked. Got himself fired. He's where he wants to be. He's happy. He's back at the company where he told me was the most miserable place he's ever worked in his life. You know, he wasn't stepping foot over there ever again. Oh, that was the old administration. Now Triple H is running things. You mean the doofus son-in-law? In the podcast he did with Colt Cabana, he deliberately pointed to and blamed Triple H for a lot of what was going on with him that made him unhappy. And here he is right back at the same place where he told us all that he would never go back because it was miserable and it made him hate pro wrestling and everything. He went right back. He went right back. That part is hypocritical, absolutely. But again, if the guy just would have went there the same way that Cody went there, I would have the utmost respect for him. He came back. He tried. It didn't work out. He didn't get along with people. They were assholes. So he wanted to leave, and he left and went to WWE. Fine. I'm with it. I just don't think he had to do everything that he decided to do on his way out the door. That's my whole take. That turned me off from CM Punk. He is, to me, hypocritical, narcissistic, and he really ultimately only cares for himself, which, fine, that's up to you, but he tries to portray himself as someone who cares about the industry and the boys and everything else. That part is a lie, and I don't buy it from him anymore. That's it. That's my rant. That's all I have on Punk. Again, I know there's going to be some disagreements in the comments. I get it. I'm ready for it. I will be right here to answer them as much as I can. So please do me a favor. Leave that comment. Let's hear it. There's no need to be disrespectful in it, but I am open to hearing them. I get it. I see that I'm going to be hated for this, and all I'm doing is putting my thoughts out there, and I appreciate you guys listening to them. Thank you guys so much. I will see you guys next time. Peace.